Good morning, everyone. It's Christy. We are here with Caliber Home Inspections again. Oh, I don't care if they see me. I just wanted to hear it. We have set up the streaming so you can see the slideshow. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you guys will be able to see everything. If you have any questions, please let us know. I'm going to ask our wonderful guests if they can send us the slide presentation that I'll keep here just in case you guys have any questions. So, take it away.
All right, Richard Smith from Caliber Home Inspections. I have no idea where I'm supposed to
You're fine.
stand
You're
just
fine,
because
Richard. You're good.
it's reversed. All right, we are talking about radon today. There's always a question that realtors have about what is radon and how bad is it. And when it first started, I was wondering, is this really a hoax? Is this a government push just because they are trying to keep their own office running if they just keep pushing it? So I had a class with a government agency about radon, and I asked them some questions that they didn't like to hear. So I just kind of called them on the table, and they explained some things that actually had it make a lot more sense. So radon is actually a gas on the periodic table. If you remember that from science class, it's Rn. The number is 222, and it is a gas that is considered the silent killer. It is the second leading cause of lung cancer. It's the first leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. So if you have radon in your house and you're a smoker, it goes up exponentially in the chance of you getting lung cancer. So radon is an invisible, odorless, tasteless gas with no immediate health symptoms. It comes from the breakdown of uranium rock that's found underneath the soil. Indoor radon is the second leading cause. We talked about that. Presents a significant health risk to families all over the country. That's Dr. Carmona. And the levels of radon, zone 1 is the higher level of radon. You can see that in the red. And does anybody see a trend in where that is?
Looks more in the north.
Rocky.
Yeah.
Rocky.
Yeah.
The mountains, you can see the mountain ranges on the east, and then over on the west side, if you notice Texas and Florida, and along the coast, it's real sandy soil, so they don't seem to have much of a radon problem. But you can see the Smoky Mountains come down, that Appalachian Trail comes down towards Atlanta, and it hits. There are some areas that we're going to talk about that typically get high levels of radon, and some that we just don't. Some that everybody thinks would be high isn't necessarily high. So it's more than 20,000 Americans die of radon-related lung cancer per year. And if you have a radon level of 4.0 picocuries per liter or more, you should take steps to remediate it, and that is what the real estate industry is using for a sales transaction. So I was in that class and I said, hey, if everybody moves every 5 years, at the time it was every 5 years people move, and I said, and one house may have it and another house doesn't, and it's odorless, colorless, and if you have lung cancer, you can't look at the lung cancer and say that's from radon. How do you know it's radon gas that's causing the lung cancer? And they stopped and they started kicking sand up, and and I'm thinking, oh man, we got it. And they said what they did is they found up in the Northeast, New England area, where people wouldn't sell their house. They'd actually hand it down, older houses, and they just keep fixing them up. They found that 12-year-olds were getting lung cancer, and a lot in this one particular area. 12-year-old and younger were getting lung cancer, and the children were not in households where parents were smoking. So they started doing some research, and they found that the radon level was high. Well, that's just a coincidence. So then they started looking all over the country, lung cancer, children, they would test their houses for radon. They found out that it was high. They started testing all over the country. And they just made a correlation between levels of radon and lung cancer. So I said, okay, where does the 4.0 come from? Why is it 4.0? And they said, well, 4.0 is whoops.
Okay, I'll fix that.
Oh, I didn't.
You keep talking.
I was like, there's something else on the TV.
4.0 is the point where they've noticed that if the radon level is high, what is high? It's all relative. So if it's high, and that was really in New England, and they usually start in the teens and go up to 20s and so forth. You're familiar with the 4.0 here in Georgia. If it's relatively high and they put one remediation system in, they can most always get it down below 4.0. So they were trying to make the sale a little bit easier because they can get that down to 4.0 with one remediation system. So I said, does anybody notice anything odd about that? 4.0, just because you put one remediation system in, what does that have to do with your health?
Right. It's not going to make
What is a good level? Should it be? The Surgeon General says it should be below 2.0. But if it's below 4.0, they've made real estate dictate that if it's above 4.0, that you should remediate. So I think the worst level of radon you can get in a real estate transaction is 3.8, because you don't have any leverage according to the standards. Surgeon General does suggest that below 2.0 is reasonable. Now, is it good enough? I don't know how you can measure it.
And is it one of those things that even if you remediate it, it can come back? Because it's gas.
It can, and you'll see why when we go a little bit further. But 4.0, take steps. Surgeon General advises that Americans should get their homes tested for radon, and you should test every 2 years. It does come back. It could shift. Things could shift under the ground. Cigarette smokers who have radon concentrations of 10 picocuries per liter or higher increase their chance of developing lung cancer by as much as 18 times, or 1,800%. The problem is also adversely affected with children's health. Millions of homes, we talked about that. And 5 schools in North America have indoor air quality problems, 1 out of every 5. So indoor air quality problems could also be molds. But this is going to help you understand how radon gets in, and you'll understand why we test and why we don't really suggest you need to test a house that has a crawl space that's vented. If they encapsulate it, you're trapping it, and then it gets into the house. So I do have a radon specialist that we use when we're backed up, and she'll go out and test. She tests every house, and she tests crawl spaces also. And periodically, she gets high levels of radon. And maybe by the time we're finished with this, you can understand why that is also. But it's not usual that it comes with a crawl space house. But radon can come into the house many different ways. Mainly through the ground, because it's from decaying uranium. And it just seeps in through the cracks of concrete. So if you have concrete up against dirt, that's where it could get in, because the concrete will crack. It's poured with water and it shrinks as it dries, so it creates these little spider hairline cracks. And that's how it gets in. And especially if you have a stubbed shower in your basement and you can see the drain line going into the dirt around that little box. That is just an open area that relieves the pressure underneath your slab and allows all the radon to come in. That's probably, I believe, one of the biggest places that radon gets into your house. It can be in the water. That's a whole different animal. If you have a well system, it comes in through the water, and then you're showering, and it kind of disperses through the air. Some pump drain lines, anything that any air can get into the house, but it's usually just cracks in the concrete. I had a fella who had high levels of radon. He was about at 6, and he said, "I will pay for the independent test again. Let me fix the basement." He knew this, so his basement was unfinished, and he could access all the concrete in the basement. So he went around, sealed every crack, especially the cracks at the foundation wall and the slab. The slab shrinks and it pulls away from the foundation wall, and there's maybe a 1/4-inch crack sometimes all the way around. He sealed that up. He sealed this. Then he ventilated the house, and then he closed it down, and he did a proper test, and he came back and it was about 2. So it's the cracks that it comes in at. So, do you have any of the following of these in your house? Cinder block walls, they tend to crack and they're much more porous. Exposed soil in the basement, we talked about that, cracks. Sump pumps, spaces between walls and crawl spaces. If you have a crawl space and a basement, those that are attached, usually there's a little passageway between, and then it would get in that way. And then exposed pipes. There's many different ways to test it. These are the radon machines. I've used some of these. There are pros and cons to both. If you want a true radon result in your own house, personally, I would probably use the charcoal canisters, because charcoal absorbs the radioactivity just like carbon dating, and they would take that, you'd seal it up, you send it to the lab, and then you have to follow directions explicitly. Find out when you opened it, when you closed it, the duration and the date you closed it. It has a half-life, and they take that with the charts, and they'll tell you what your reading is. You don't see where it spikes. You don't see anything but the reading, but that is how they actually calibrate the machines, is with the charcoal, because it's absolute. It's the carbon dating, it's the radioactivity off the carbon. However, the machines are the ones that you would use for a real estate transaction, because you can document all of the activity in the house. If people leave the windows open, the humidity goes up, and you can see the humidity going up and down. You can see the temperature going up and down if they open the windows. Barometric pressure is measured. Vibration, if someone wants to move the machine out to a different, if they just want to open the basement and let the basement breathe and so forth. If you open a window, you can't verify if a window was open to crack, and that makes a big difference in your radon results, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But these are many different types. The one in the middle, the little vial, is the water test. That's not very usual for a real estate transaction. The radon in the water is not on the same scale, so you don't look for 4.0. It'll be into the thousands almost everywhere. So it's just unusual. There is a little radon machine that you can get. I have a PS2. I think it's up to a PS3 or 4 now. I don't know what PS stands for. But you can plug it in and test the radon in the room. After 2 days, it'll chime and it'll give you the result. And for about 10 tests that I did with the charcoal and the machine, I found that it was quite accurate. It was a really good high level. If you're concerned about your own house, the machines cost about $150. It's like a little smoke detector thing, but you plug it in and you just wait. You plug it in and set it up and wait. The good thing about that is you could do it again and again. You buy the machine, it's yours. You could do it, you can bring it in, share it around the office. You can give it to your relatives, let them check. It's a 2-day test, just like everything, and then it'll come back. You can do long-term test with it, and you can do a short-term. I found it very reliable, and but not good for a real estate transaction because it's not calibrated.
I have a question on that one.
Yeah.
Too. Because you were saying that obviously if there's air filtration or something that comes in and out, like a window being open or something of that nature. If you have a home that does not have a basement or a crawl space, so the main part of your house that you're checking
slab?
slab coming in and out, is that going to mess up the reading of the?
No.
It shouldn't. Okay.
No. As long as you close the doors on the way out and way in, you keep doors closed behind you like a normal winter day or summer day where you want to save the energy. Yeah, and you'll see why shortly. Testing is required on some government loans. All apartment complexes, I think they're requiring, if it's going to be a government housing, they need to be tested, and they're trying to. It's the government agency. They're trying to push it down to all government loans, VAs, HUD properties, and so forth. So, and that there's also some conversation to get it down below 2.0. And if they do that, I'm going to have to hire some more people because everybody will get their house tested. Right now, we're looking at 30%.
Yeah.
Not including the slabs, but 30% of the houses that we're testing. I would test. It's a cheap test to defer the cost of lung cancer and trying to take care of that. So this is a radon machine. I told you radon gets in from underneath the slab or behind the foundation walls. So why does it want to come in your house instead of just go up out? Okay, you have different results to your test if it's windy out, or if it's raining, or if it's frozen. Okay, if it's frozen or raining, it kind of seals the dirt, and the gas doesn't want to come up outside. It wants to follow the path of least resistance, and it'll find a basement and it'll start going through the cracks and come into your house. You're actually, when you have the windows closed and your AC on or your heat on, you create a negative pressure and you suck the air in from underneath the slab. Heat rises. The worst design of a house that would promote radon is a house that is new and a 2-story basement. New because eventually that concrete will crack. They all do. 2 stories, you turn the heat on, and sometimes in the summer or in the winter, you turn the heat on the main floor, and the heat rises. It'll hit your top floor, and you want it kind of cooler anyway. You never turn the heat on upstairs anyway. So heat rises. It'll hit your top ceiling, and it'll push out through the light fixtures. It'll push out through the windows, tiny little cracks, and it leaves, and all your doors are closed. And overnight, they don't open. It doesn't relieve the pressure. So the house is just being sucked in. The walls are being sucked in, and it just creates a vacuum, and it pulls in all the radon from your basement. So if you do look at your next results of a radon test, you'll see a chart, and you'll see it just going up like this. It tests every hour or 2 hours or something, and you'll see it going up and down, and then you'll look at the time, and you'll see, whoa, boy, at 6 o'clock in the morning, it's really high, and then, oh, someone opened the door. No pressure, and then it'll come down, and that's basically what's happening. So it's creating a suction, and what you want to do with a, is it timed out or something?
That's what it does. It's okay.
All right. So what a radon machine, remediation machine will do is it will create a negative pressure underneath your slab. So it's pulling air down instead of allowing air to come up through your concrete. And in this case, you would have a pipe coming down. They bore a hole in your concrete, and they get there's concrete, there's plastic, 6 mil plastic, and then 4 inches of rock. So they get by the concrete, they get to that rock area where all the gases can move. And they put a pipe up and put a fan on it. They create a negative pressure, and it sucks the air from underneath your slab and sucks it out. and it's supposed to be out distributed above your roof. So the fan, you see the fan connection is in the attic. That's just to keep the noise away from everything. And in the event there are leaks there, then it would be out in the roof area. And it discharges above the attic. So problems, if you test and it comes back, if you put the pipe over on this side of the house, you drill a hole in your concrete and create the negative pressure, pull the gases out, and then you test. So it's always good to test after. There could be a grade beam running down the center of your house underneath to hold the weight load of the roof all the way up if it's a stick-built roof. Then what happens is the radon could actually be coming up on that side of the house. So it's good to test after you put the pipe in. Sometimes you need two pipes. Bigger house, grade beam down the center, you take the radon out of there, take the radon out of here. And two pipes can use one fan. They can just be tied together and pull.
How long does it take to install that? That looks pretty serious.
A day.
Okay.
A day. Usually in a design like this is a one story on a basement. This would be, I don't know if prices have changed lately, but it was about $1,500.
If you have a slab, do they have to drill into the slab or do they do it outside the house?
Drill into the slab.
Okay.
Usually they'll find a closet, big closet, master closet, and if they can just go right up the corner of the closet, sometimes they have to change those wire shelves and stuff. And they'll go outside and they'll hit the attic, and then they take out the vent through the back of the house and put the fan up in the attic, create that negative pressure. So knowing that overnight you have this negative pressure and it's pulling the walls in and sucking the radon up through the house. Some people, some realtors I've heard, want to try to beat the system, and they want to ventilate the house a little bit, so they'll put bathroom vent fan on, creating more negative pressure, sucking more radon into the house. You put your dryer on, it's blowing a lot of hot air out, it's getting the air from somewhere. So it's just creating more negative pressure and pulling it in. You do a lot of laundry, you have your bathroom vent fan on all the time, you're changing all of your the air in your house, and you're just sucking it in from outside and losing your power bill, or you're sucking in the radon from the slab. So this is what it looks like in the basement. It looks like a regular sewer drain. Okay? And if you notice, see that little thing up top? We're going to get back to that, but that is to tell you, that's going to tell you that that is a radon tube. Usually it'll have a sticker also that it is radon mitigation system. But you won't see the fan from down in the basement. Up in the attic is the fan, and a regular inspector will see that and then report it on a report. But you notice it goes out and then up, outside the roof. But down in the basement, that is called a J-tube. You can see why they call it a J-tube. It is water that's colored so you can tell what it is. You can tell that they're not level. If they're level, the machine is the attic fan is not on. If they're unlevel, then the machine is on and sucking air out. What this is essentially is a silly straw, and it lays open on the left. In this case, it lays open on the left side. They have water in it, and then it goes up and it goes into the tube. So when you have a negative pressure, it's pulling the liquid off to one side. So that's how you can tell, obviously, what's going on with the fan. In the event you want to get put a system in, and you've got a two-story, and you don't have a chase where you can pull that pipe all the way up through. And sometimes they're difficult. 2 stories are difficult. That's when you'll see this situation. If they get that pipe all the way through the house, through a chase or a closet that's on top of a closet, and then you can follow it straight up. then that would be ideal if you want to keep the wart off the side of your house, or the eyesore. But this is the other option. If you go through a 2-story with a basement, those hang around $2,000 to try to get through and install. This will reduce the price. If it's a basement house, they'll take it up to the ceiling of the basement, take it out the sidewall, put the fan right there so you can access it and maintain it. And then they'll take that. You'll see the right picture. It discharges to the right of or above the roof line. Personally, I like to put a little turn down on it so the rain doesn't go in, because if you get an inch of rain, you get this much water in that little pipe, and then you're just splashing it around with the fan. The fan's made for it, but I turned mine down. Yes, I had radon. I checked my house, and it was 20 years ago, and I said, well, in case this isn't a hoax, I am going to check my radon level, and it was 4.1. And I said, all right. So I put the fan in, and it looks like this. And so I waited a couple weeks, tested it again, and it was 0.2. 0.2. I said, all right. So now I don't have to worry about that. Now, I should test it every 2 years because things change. We call it God's plumbing. Underneath the ground, wherever the gas is, the path of least resistance that comes up. If things move, shift, then your neighbor who had radon and you didn't because you tested, and you're scared because you see his pipe sticking out of his house all the time, so you test again, you don't have any, and then 2 years later you could get it. If something shifts, then the gas just flows differently and you can pull it in. So this is the very unfortunate case that you get uranium rock and concrete aggregate. Concrete has small rocks in it, and then they use cement, they blend it all together with sand and everything, and they pour it. And if there is uranium rock in there, even a high rise can have radon. And if it's in the concrete, how do you get rid of it? I don't know. I have no idea. The only thing that I go to is you could frame out your basement with a cavity behind the wall and then suck that air out. But I've heard a guy who had radon in a couple of his houses, bought a new house, and he said, all right, we're gonna check it for radon, but that's okay. Check it for radon. It was high, it was 6.1. And he said, all right, we'll go ahead and close. I'll get my guy to fix it after. He had a pipe put in, and they tested it later, and it was 5.9. So they put another pipe in and tested it again, and it was 6.1. And then they said, maybe it's in the side wall. So this was really underground. So he found a crack, and he drilled a hole in the side concrete wall, and he put a pipe there and sucked it. Now he had to have 2 fans. So he's got 2 fans going 4 pipes, 5 pipes, and it was still hanging around 6. So they got a box with a radon test, battery radon test, and they had one side open, and they adhered it to the foundation wall, and they ran the test, and it was about 400 or 500. So it was in the aggregate of the foundation wall. I thought another way to get rid of that situation would be lead paint to seal it, but then you get into lead paint problems you can't use. If you want more information about radon and all the results, because there's areas that are heavy, and what we're doing is we're starting to gather all the information on what areas are typically heavy and which are not. A lot of people say that it's in granite and Stone Mountain is high. A lot of people say that, and yeah, sure, there is some uranium rock and granite, but granite is not uranium rock. So Stone Mountain, I've tested there a number of times, and it's high or low. It doesn't. There's no particular trend towards Stone Mountain, even though it's granite. The areas that I would put money on, it was high. Every time we've tested, it was high. It's funny where it is. Chateau Lawn. Every single time. There's a community behind it, Deaton Creek.
Mm-hmm.
My mom lived in Deaton Creek, so we tested. It was 5 or 6. So we put a pipe in the slab, and it went through a master closet, through the aluminum wire or the metal wiring, and stuff went out. And behind Deaton Creek goes Spout Springs, Flowery Branch, all those subdivisions. That's where the uranium rock is. That's for sure. We've had high areas around the lake because it's very rocky, Lake Lanier. And Jefferson was our highest at 24.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
yeah, so do you have like some good people you suggest for those of us who
mitigation.
live there?
Oh no! Test it.
Yeah.
Test it if you're really concerned about long-term tests and continuing tests and retesting. I can get one of those machines. I have it in the car. I should bring it in and show it to you. But it's just a plug-in. Looks like a smoke detector, but a little odd shape. You can, if you just want to do it cheap, it's a few dollars to go to the box store and get the carbon, and just follow the directions. Close everything. Close the damper in your fireplace. Close everything. Don't run your vent fans within 1 day. I do a little laundry. This is normal operations of your house. Put your vent fan on, turn it off after you're finished. Fans over your stove, if they vent out, it's a negative pressure. Anything with a negative pressure. I put my vent fan on. This was interesting. I put my vent fan on and closed down the house. Totally closed it down. I cracked the window just a little bit. I put my hand. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel like a negative sucking out. Then I got a little piece of tissue paper, and I hung it from the bottom of this, and I closed it, and it was sucked in. It was moving. It was really pulling air in. It was barely, but it was something. And it was pulling the radon gases out of the house, which is good. So I did one house that I tested. It was vacant. This is an interesting scenario. It was up by the lake, Lake Lanier. And we had to test it 3 times. I'm trying to get all the ducks in a row here. I tested the first time and it was 17. It was vacant. I said, well, I'm leaving. I'm doing a radon test. It was vacant. So I put the heat on and left. We picked it up, read it, and it was 17. And the seller got scared to death. It's like, come back and retest, and we'll take care of it. We're gonna do something. We're gonna fix it. It's just because the house was closed up all the time. Well, yeah, but the house was closed up. I was running the heating and air, but there was no one opening and closing the door because it was vacant. So we tested again, and it went down from 17 to about 7. So I called my specialist. I said, does this sound strange to you? And she said, yeah, something's wrong. Something's wrong. So I sent her out to test it. And when she got there, the basement window was open. They knew we told everybody we're coming back for a 3rd test. And we got 11. So that's probably, it's still super high. And something really needs to be done. I wouldn't want to live there. Knowing that, I wouldn't want to live there. It's amazing. Ignorance is bliss. And then you find all this stuff. And but But if you're a smoker, don't live with radon. And if you're a non-smoker, don't live with radon. So, and you can't get rid of it. It's like mold. Mold is everywhere. You can have mold here. You can have, it's everywhere. But you can reduce it. I haven't gotten a 0 yet. Lowest I got was 0.2. But their normal levels are 1.3. That's your average type in a house. It could be lower. It usually doesn't go too much lower than that. I see a couple ones. Lately, what is it? Higher? Oh, you don't get them. Lately, about 50% that we test are high, and that high just means a little high, 4 or above. I hate to see 3.8. It's just. Well, for the buyer, it's good to know because definitely I'd remediate it. Questions?
Who's scared now?
Scared of radon? Who's going to test their house for radon? We can test it. It's a whole lot more expensive than buying that machine or going to the box store and picking up your carbon. But when you do the carbon, read the directions a couple times. Make sure you know it's just closing everything down, running your heating and air just like you would, walking in and out just like you would. Keep it away from heat. Keep it in the center of the lowest room. That type of thing.
I do have a question. Sorry, I was a little late, but would you recommend doing a radon test? You know, when we do a or sometimes we suggest a pre-inspection as we're listing a property. Would you recommend doing a radon test as a part of that so that the seller, you know, is aware of the situation prior to, you know, getting a contract and then finding?
That's all up to your way to do business.
Do people, are you seeing that happen?
I've seen a couple. We've done a couple of those, but not many.
What is the cost of that? Is it per square footage or?
No, it is, what is it, $225?
It's $225 without an inspection.
Without
If you get
an
an
inspection.
inspection, you get a little bit of a discount. I think
Yeah.
it's like $185 or
Okay.
$195.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a pre-listing inspection, do you all do pre-listing inspections too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could do that in tandem?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And the cost, a lot of the cost is just time, driving back and forth, and then sending the results to the lab and the machine, and so.
Because it does take 2 business days to get the results back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If a basement is finished, it's a lower radon level than an unfinished basement, is it? No?
No, the pressure is still pulling against the wall. It gets by the low drop ceiling because, yeah, it's still pulling in.
Is there a way to specifically test the granite countertops?
I put a charcoal canister on the countertop.
Now, do the big box stores carry both the electric one and the charcoal one?
They won't, I haven't seen the electric one in the box store, but
Okay.
they do the charcoal.
But you can order them.
Yeah, you can order, just do online. Amazon. Yeah, they're PS something. I don't know what version we're on right now.
Okay.
But I'm sure there's a bunch of different types, but it's a technology, and it's probably a simple technology, and I found them to be quite accurate, surprisingly accurate.
Any other questions?
Questions? Now there are radon classes you have to take to be certified, and they're 8 hours, and you start learning all the breakdown of the uranium gas and the readings, and no one needs to know that. It's just, this is the basic and how it gets in and the history behind it. So if you have any questions, or if oh, by the way, anybody who had a biscuit back there? A little unusual? A little unusual. They are
orange shadow.
Organic Chipotle biscuits. They had my daughter put this together for me. It said, she said, they don't have any kick per se, just a little bit spicy. They are made with Chipotle powder and Louisiana hot sauce.
Oh, that's fine.
Mhm. And the honey is spiced honey.
Oh, okay.
It's honey. Did you think?
All right, and if you guys are watching online, because I see some of you are, and you missed the biscuits, so that's what you get for watching online. But thank you so much. We really appreciate it, and we'll stop this, and we'll have some other information for you guys that are online if you need it. So you guys have an awesome day.